empowering women, encouraging people, uplifting communities.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Kimberly Bennett Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Bennett, and I am beyond excited to share your living room with you again this week with an exciting new topic that is important to me. On today's episode, we are exploring the transformative world of mental health therapy. Joining us is Lolita Tucker, a special friend of the show who will be shedding light on the various types of therapies available, sharing insights on how these treatments can help people reclaim their lives after trauma. Get ready for an enlightening conversation on the power of therapy and the road to healing.
Life can be full of risks. One thing you shouldn't take a risk with ever is your family's health insurance. If you're self-employed or you now need affordable health insurance, you need to make this free call right now and see how the Health Insurance Helpline can help you get it. We specialize in helping the self-employed and people just like you that need affordable health insurance to get it. We have short and long-term health insurance plans, and some even cover dental, vision, and prescription drugs. Don't take a risk with your family's health insurance. It's not worth it. If you're self-employed or now need affordable health insurance, call right now and learn for free how to get it. Listen, affordable health insurance plans for everyone just like you are a free phone call away. So give us a shout right now.
Call 877-791-2642. That's 877-791-2642. 877-791-2642.
Welcome to the show, Lolita.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited about being here and talking with you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you, and thank you for taking time out of your day to come in and speak with Kimberly's viewers. So, what is the mental illness? What is mental illness? And can therapy help with mental illness, and how do they differ from one another?
Well, you know what? I'm glad you asked because mental illness is very prevalent in today's world. Before, mental illness was a taboo and people didn't talk about mental illness. So mental illness is a disturbance in the mind. It's an imbalance, something that's off chemically in the mind. So there's, and can therapy help? Definitely. Therapy is your navigation to get into a better you. And different types of common types of mental health therapy. You have CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy. You have mindfulness. You have trauma focus. So there's a vast different type of therapies, and each therapy is based off each client. So one therapy is just not for each client. It all depends on the client and the situation.
So what about if we have dual things going on?
So there's a large populations of a lot of clients that do have dual diagnosis. Like we'll use PTSD, right? With that PTSD comes some anxiety and some depression. And some people have, with other things like, let's use obsessive compulsive disorder, right? That can tie into, other things like with anxiety. So you can be diagnosed with multiple things, all depending on what the situation is that's going on with the client and what they've experienced.
And they would need multiple different avenues of getting back to healing.
The journey to recovery differs from client to client. So like I said, it all depends on what that client is experiencing, and the symptoms that they're exhibiting helps the therapist to navigate on that journey.
What roles do the therapeutic relationship play in the effectiveness of therapy? And how can clients build trust with their therapists?
That is a fantastic question, and I'm glad you asked me. So I'll answer the second part of the question with the trust. So once the client do decide to start therapy, it's that therapist's job to let that client know that that is a safe space. Everything that is shared in that space remains in that space, as opposed to where you can talk to your best friend and they go back and tell somebody. In this space, this is where the client can be at their most vulnerable space. And, coming in, the therapist, again, lets you know that this is a safe space. And there's confidentiality clause that we have to adhere to. There are certain laws that as a therapist that we are bound to. The American Council Association, we are guided by those codes. And it's one of those things that what you share with me stays here. With the exception to certain things that we are mandated to report.
What are those exceptions?
Wouldn't like to say I'm about to go home and murder my husband.
Okay.
I mean,
you have to report that.
We have to,
Okay.
But I mean, it all depends on the circumstances surrounding. I mean, it could be said in a joking way, but as a therapist, we have to decipher, is it a credible threat or not, or if you saying that you're going to cause harm to yourself. Those things, we have to take that into consideration, and we have to figure out if it's credible or not. And your record would kind of help us, to determine that. I mean, it could be like, I just don't want to be here no more. It's just like, stop saying that, and we can get you on to the next. Or it might be like, okay, we really need to report this. So what does therapeutic relationship and the effectiveness? So it all depends on the client. Every client has their own set of circumstances, so the therapeutic relationship differs from client to client. You may have some that you may have to handle with gentle hands, and you may have some that you can, just be straightforward and more direct with them. And the different roles, like I say, depends on the client, and the effectiveness, again, ties into the client. So coming into therapy, I think a lot of people come into therapy and they're a tad bit apprehensive. I don't want to be able to share this. And when you're disingenuous with yourself about therapy, and you have that wall of like, I'm gonna tell this part, but I'm not gonna tell this part.
Not
or
total honesty.
Yeah, and you
just a little honest.
Exactly. Or you go to therapy looking for that therapist to tell you what to do. It's not the therapist's job to tell you what to do. It's our job to navigate you on your path to wanting to be a better you. And again, it's on the client. Now, you have some clients that require a little bit more intensive therapy than others. And again, it goes back to what the situation may be.
At what point how can you tell when someone actually needs hospitalization for their mental health?
That's a great question. Very strategically. If you have a client, let's say that has had past trauma, and they just can't move past it, that may be a client that may need to be hospitalized. Or you have a client that have severe PTSD, or you have a client, definitely if you have a client that's suicidal.
So if you have a therapist and you're not totally honest with that therapist, or in your therapy sessions, can that be harmful? To me, it seems like it's no help, but how detrimental can it really be to actually go to therapy and not be honest with your therapist?
Well, if you're coming into therapy and you're not being honest, you're wasting your own time. You're wasting your own time, gas. You can be doing something else. Coming to therapy, one, it's the buy-in. And when you finally sit down with yourself and you decide to say, hey, I'm going to therapy, you have to be very vulnerable, because coming to therapy, a lot of times the therapist is able to pull things out of the client that they normally wouldn't share. And if you're not being honest with yourself, I mean, again, it's just a waste of time. And the therapist could be actually counseling somebody who really wants to get help.
Needs it.
And it's one of the things, like when you go to therapy, you have to want to see a better side of you.
I started therapy a few months back.
Well, good. That's a beautiful thing.
And what took me to therapy is kind of similar to what you just said. I actually felt out of myself.
Okay.
I actually felt it was just too much. And I'm a strong person and I feel I can handle some things, but it was really just too much on me that I had to have someone to say yay or nay. And someone that I trust, you know, and in that trust, they had to have a background that I felt they could handle me. So with that, before we go further, can you give me your background, your history? Because you are my therapist.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you. And I say when you do decide to get a therapist, do a little research. And sometimes, you know, what you see online, it's not always what you get, because normally what's online is what professional. But when you go to start seeking the counseling, you go in like on your intake or your consultation, start asking questions. So, my background. So, I am Detroit born and raised, east side of Detroit.
Okay, east side.
Almost threw up gang signs, but anyway, east side of Detroit. Growing up, I always wasn't a good girl.
Okay.
You know, I can honestly say this. It is my testimony. As I became a certain age, I lived a certain lifestyle, the fast lifestyle. You know, I was in the streets doing things that, you know, I should have not been doing. But it was all life lessons. And from there, you know, I decided, okay, it's time for me to get myself together. And from there, little East Side street girl became the police.
Police?
Yes. So I took on a job with the city of Detroit, and you know, I worked up through the ranks. I retired after 22 and a half years as a sergeant. But you know, during my time on the police department, I left the police department and I went to the military.
Okay.
So I left for a little while, took a little break from, you know, working in law enforcement, went to the military, and I served 7.5 years, U.S. Army.
Oh wow. That's neat.
Yeah, and you know, from there, you know, working as you know, in law enforcement and being in the military, I knew this was my calling to help, because it always seemed like I was always put in a situation where I had to be the voice of reasoning, or I had to be that balance for a lot of people. So I decided I'm gonna go back to school.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going back to school because my end journey after working in law enforcement was to do this, was to become a counselor. I feel like God put me here to give back what I feel like I missed out on while I was out, you know, in the streets doing ungodly things. Right. So, you know, this is my way of reaching back and helping somebody and giving back. So, that's awesome. You know, it's always my end game to be a therapist. So,
well, I believe Detroit police, you somewhat got to have some therapy in you. You to be a good officer, you really got to understand some mental stuff.
Definitely, and my mentor always tells me that I've always been a counselor. I was just unlicensed. Right. So now, you know, with the education backing it, so now I get to do it, you know, under the professional realm. So,
right.
Yeah.
And I even see now that police runs, they sometime, depending on what the call was about, have social workers with them now.
Yes.
And that, I think, is just so awesome. Yeah, I don't know who thought of it, but to actually have someone there on the scene that is licensed and do know how to deal with the mentally ill. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I will say that although COVID was tragic for a lot of families, COVID also had some positivities brought up, because during COVID is when we started seeing more cases of mental health. It came to the forefront. Whereas before, I can honestly say, like when I was, working in law enforcement, they would call the police to come out for a mental run, and not knowing how to handle that person, it was just handled improperly.
Right.
But I can say that now, because seeing how it's handled in a different light, as opposed to being on the other side, it's like, okay, this is what we were taught. So now, law enforcement, they have increased training for mental health, and like you said, a lot of agencies are having licensed professionals come out. So now mental health is not so taboo, and
Right.
you have more people willing to come in for mental health counseling than you did before, and it also gives law enforcement another tool on their tool belt to to help when they're out serving the public.
Right, because I felt I didn't need therapy. I'm a strong woman. I can handle it. But when I realized I did need help, I was hoping to find someone who could really handle my help. And I say that because I am a strong person. But when I sat at your desk and you told me that you retired from the police department, and I was like, okay, this is the one right here. God sent her for me, because she got something on her hands right here. So it made me feel even more comfortable. Your background really did make me feel that, because you dealt with a lot of things in the streets, and so did I, in another way. So I truly do appreciate your journey that you've already traveled before I even met you, because it does give me the comfortability that I can come left, I can come right, I can go up under it, but you still got me.
We're going to get you back on course.
Yeah, we're going to get me back on track. So I totally do appreciate that.
Thank you.
And longevity I see with you. I get to the point where if I missed a session or two, I'm like, I got to get there. Something wrong with me. And she gonna tell me just what it is.
Yeah, like, well, let's look at it like this. Let's paint a different picture.
So from my heart, truly, a trying time, which is now that I'm going through with all the changes and getting older and dealing with family issues in church and life itself. I thank you because you do. I come in one person and I leave out a different person and feeling hopeful.
That's the key word.
So yep. So I thank you for that.
And thank you for entrusting me. Like I say, I mean, this profession is not easy. They teach us not to internalize it and don't take it home.
Right, and that's my next question. How do you do that? I mean, because you're a person that want to help, so it doesn't end when that hour ends.
That's correct.
How do you not take it home?
It's one of those things that, for me, after each client, I give myself a grace period so I can deprocess it. Because there's a lot of times when clients come in, certain situations they're going through, either I've been through or I might be going through. So some things like, it's, most people, it's family, finances, relationships. Those are the type of things that hit us the hardest, and they're the hardest for us to overcome. So, like I said, I take time in between clients and I deprocess it. So if there's a client that the situation was just like, oh my God, like I can't take this in my house. I'm a firm believer, I don't bring in my house what I don't want in my house. So I have to take time. If that means I have to take a longer drive, if I need to stop somewhere and eat, and talk to somebody else. So I have to figure out in that situation which is best for me. Like when I was in the military, we got deployed, and when we were on the plane heading over to Iraq, I told my soldiers, I said, whatever y'all got on this plane, leave it on this plane, because we got a job to do when we get off this plane.
Right.
And I don't never want to have to stand on nobody's doorstep and tell their loved ones that y'all didn't make it back.
Right.
So I use that for myself, because like going into my house, if I take clients' problems into my house, I don't know how I'm gonna handle it inside my house.
Right.
But I know if I leave it outside the door, I know what to do when I get inside. So it's just a matter of deep processing it.
That's good.
And if it's something that gets too heavy, therapists have therapists. I call my therapist.
Okay. All right.
And I talk her ear off.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
How do a person realize that they are that they are making progress? Let me start over. How can a person realize that they are making progress in therapy? And what should they do if they feel stuck? Okay. How can a person How can a person recognize if they are making progress in therapy? And what should they do if they feel stuck?
Well, you said it best yourself. You said when you come in one way and you come out and you feel hopeful. That is a great analogy of how you know therapy is working. Again, therapy is something that the client has to want to do. They have to buy into it, and they have to set their mind on, like, I have a goal. Like, I'll use the example, like if somebody come in depressed, you know, you come in, you're crying from the time you hit the door to the time you leave, right? And if that's every time, okay, we're not making progress. We need to switch in a different type of therapy. But you can tell, like, when you're making progress, like I said, you said it best, I'm still in that. You feel hopeful when you leave, like, okay, like, I have a different perspective. Because it's like, you have your thought process of what this is, and then there's your therapist, like, well, let me give you a different way. I mean, we reframe things and we get you to refocus and you know, go back. Well, let's look at it, you know, different. Like, okay, well, this is how it's offered over here. How does it look this way? I mean, like you said before, it's two sides to every story. And which side of the story do you want? You know, it's like, what is your end game? Do you want to be a better version of you? And what to do if you get stuck? Call your therapist.
Call your therapist.
Call your therapist and let your therapist know. I mean, you have to tell your therapist, like, if it's working, because only you know if it's working. And if you feel like the method that we're using is not good for you, like, hey, look, I don't think I'm getting anywhere with this. And it's the therapist's job to go back to the drawing board. Let me paint something different and see. Let me pick out a different therapy method that, you know, that may work for you.
Right. Yeah. I remember missing an appointment, and you called me the next day to check on me, and I thought that was so indeed. She really cares about me.
Yes. Yeah.
But it really did. It made me feel good. And you said something's wrong, and I'm like, no, it's all good. So that, you know, that's special. So I never got a chance or remembered to say thank you for that, even though I was good that day, you know, just to know that I was missed and you care enough about where my mental, it meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like for myself, I treat people how I want to be treated. And it takes nothing out of my day if you miss an appointment, you know, like no call, no shows. Like I say, mental health is serious. Today you can be sitting here and tomorrow the bottom could just fall out mentally. So for myself as a counselor, if I have a client that's a no call, no show, I'm gonna call just to check, like, hey, are you good? I think it goes a long way.
It does, because that's not my MO, but it got by me, and it, for you to reach out to me, it was like, wow,
we're in this
somebody
together.
Really cares,
you know? We're in this together.
So I like that. I like that. So thank you. Kudos.
Yes.
Kudos.
Appreciate that.
How can individuals overcome the stigma associated with seeking therapy and mental health treatment?
Don't worry about what somebody has to say. Like I said, like, you know, in past, seeking mental health was taboo. There are some cultures, some ethnicity where, the family will write you out, if you seek mental health. But in today's society, it's socially acceptable.
Right.
And I must say that it's sad that society had to tell the world, like, it's okay to go to therapy. There's nothing, there's nothing wrong with it. Whereas before, like, kids didn't get therapy. I grew up in the era like seen and not heard. But I also grew up in the era, my era growing up is when divorce was large and it was on the rise. So, I come from a single parent household.
Right.
So a lot of things, a lot of issues I had, like if, I broke up with my first boyfriend, your mom like, go in your room, stop all that crying, like you get another boyfriend. But you know what I'm saying? It's just like, you just don't know how that affects, kids. And it's just like, now I really appreciate now that mental health is not so taboo and, people can, seek mental help.
Right. Say I got an issue, I got a problem.
Exactly. I need to talk to somebody.
I need help. Right.
Yes.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
What are some of the techniques therapists use to help clients manage anxiety, depression, or mental health challenges?
Great question. So there's a lot of different, but I'll just give you a few, like managing anxiety and depression. Journaling is a great way, because sometimes you need to see what you're feeling. I like to use a dry eraser board. Write down what you're feeling, or write it down on a pen and piece of paper, or write a note to yourself, or if you had a breakup, write him or her a letter.
Right.
You never have to send it to it. Just write it so you can get it up off you. Anxiety, like breathing techniques. Bring that breathing down. Like any type of physical movement, like physical therapy is good. Just going to the gym, blowing off some steam. A lot of people, go to the steam like men. Like I need to be in the gym. That is their stress relief. And managing it is just repetitiveness. Just keep going. If this doesn't work, okay, let's try something else. Just don't, the best advice is just don't give up.
Don't give up.
Yeah, because, it may not work today, but it might work tomorrow.
I have a friend that went through a real tragedy over 20 years ago. And I see that they need therapy. How do you convince, talk to, be heard by someone that don't feel they need therapy, but in your heart, not because you so educated, but you just know that they need therapy? How would you tell a friend you need therapy without
hurting their feelings? Tell them your story. Tell them your journey with therapy. Okay. Share. Every story can turn into a testimony, and sometimes you just have to reach people where they are, and just share. You can YouTube share it. I think sharing your story is like the best journey, and it's just like handle it with care. Right. Like, listen, I love you. I see something that you don't see.
Right.
And I think you should talk to somebody. And if it's nothing more than just to talk, just to get it off your chest, I think you should talk to somebody. Right. And then ultimately, it's going to be up to that person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They'll have to take it from there.
Exactly. You can only put the key in ignition. They have to turn it and put it in gear and drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
How can someone prepare for their first therapy session, and what should they expect during the initial consultation?
Well, that first therapy session, I can tell you firsthand, you're nervous. You don't know if you're going to be able to trust this person. You don't even know if you're going to be a good mesh. So like with the consultation is more or less, let's kind of like get to know each other. We're going to introduce ourselves, and we're going to see if we may be a good fit. Every counselor is not a good fit.
Yeah, that's true.
It all depends on what you're going through to figure out if this is a good mesh for you. Like, you wouldn't take somebody who suffers with PTSD and send them to a relationship therapist.
Right.
What are we doing here? You know,
Right,
they need to be with somebody who's more focused on like trauma and grief and things of that nature. So you just got to find the right one. And like I said, the consultation is the get to know you phase. So, you know, during that that visit, you know, we ask you like health questions, mental health questions, family history. We definitely ask why are you here for counseling and what it is that you're looking to get from counseling.
So if there was a couple that were going through some things and they felt they needed therapy, would they start off a couple therapy together, or would it be best that they do therapy separate and then come together?
In my opinion, I think it should be done separately and then come together.
Okay.
Because I have seen many times when you counsel together, they go their separate ways because
Don't turn out well.
Yeah, and it's you know, it just in my opinion. I mean, and again, it all depends on the couple,
Right.
and what the situation is. I can say from firsthand experience for myself. I found it when me and my husband got arrested, so went through individual counseling. We had a different perspective on how I see things and how he may see things. So when we came to therapy together,
Right.
It wasn't so egregious. We wasn't so angry because we have worked with our individual
Right.
counselor to address those issues, and we were able to communicate a little bit better in counseling as a couple. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, you still may have like, I'm not talking to you on the way home, but working individually, you learn how to communicate better with your spouse.
In my experience, I learned that I wasn't all right.
Oh, great counseling.
Yeah. Not all right.
Just a little bit. Just a little
Just a little bit. But no, that other people are entitled to be and do things different
Yes.
than how you feel it should be done. And just because they have a different way than mine doesn't mean that we're not going to hit 100.
Exactly.
But if I allow you to show me your skills and we don't hit 100, then it's time to do this my way.
It's the balancing. It's the balancing.
Yeah, so, you know, but I have learned to stand back and say, okay. And then if it materializes and if it works, then okay. Then if not, then I have literally given this person their ground, their feel, their opinion in everything, you know. So, and then I get a chance to show my ground,
Exactly.
my opinion, and then we're going to see which one works best for us.
It's a work in progress. I
Right.
mean, it's like, you know, you have to accept people for who they are.
They are.
And, you know, everything is not going to always be done your way, and it's not always going to be done the other person's way.
Right.
It's just a matter of what's the objective, what's the goal we're trying to get to. So if that means, like, I'll use like this new age math, 2 + 2.
Okay.
In our world, it's 4.
Right.
But in this new math, they teach these kids to go all the way around the globe to get to 4.
4.
But the objective is to get to 4.
Right.
Although we may see it this way and they see it that way, the objective is to get to 4. How do we meet in the middle to get to 4? And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is how do we meet in the middle to
Right.
get to the end result.
And I'm a result person.
Okay.
If you can show me results, I'm going to roll with you. If you don't have no results, try my way.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell, like, you're very assertive. Very assertive.
You think?
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's nothing wrong with that. The world is shaped of many different people, and that's how the world works. And you know that old saying that opposites attract, that's very true.
That's definitely my husband and I.
Yeah, and you know, marriage is balancing. Like you bring this and I bring that.
Right.
How do we even the scales out so we can work together?
Right. What role do culture, social, and personal beliefs play in therapy? That's a good one. And how can therapists ensure that they are providing culturally competent care?
So culturally, like I said before, different cultures, their mental health is taboo. You know, if something wrong with you, you know, some cultures would just write you off.
Right.
So as a therapist, during the consultation, that's when we ask those questions, and even, you know, everything is online. So like when you're filling out your patient information, there is something on there about religion. So if you were Buddhist, it's my job to learn, to make sure that I'm very well versed in what Buddhism is and how, you know, if mental health is acceptable or whatever. So depending on what your culture is, for mental health therapists, we need to make sure that we're well versed in, you know, what your religious beliefs is, what your culture, you know, say. So
you go to school for, I mean, literally it's an education to learn your person, its history, its background in order to treat them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
So
Makes sense.
Yeah. So you have to know your client. You have to get to know your client. And the more clients come into therapy, the more we learn.
Right.
And socially, it's very socially acceptable now to go to mental health, and the media plays a very good tie into it. I mean, you see all kinds. Well, if you got regular TV, there's a lot of commercials about mental health, which is, you know, pre-COVID we didn't have that. So again, like I said before, there's some positivities that did come out of COVID, and where it's socially acceptable to seek mental health counseling, I think is a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So, COVID, far as not being able to mingle with each other and go out into the world, the mental health, it spiraled.
Yes.
Why do you think that? Or give us some reasons why.
Isolation.
Correct.
The lack of social connect. Like, as we all know, during COVID, a lot of jobs went to remote. Teleworking from home. You have some people who need that social connectivity. Some people are just fine with it, but you have those who need that social connectivity, and I believe they social the most because, you know, for those like single people, you know, you working from home, you isolated from everybody.
Right.
You don't have that, so I think they're those people who need that social connectivity with that isolation suffered the most.
And then not to know actually what was happening.
Exactly.
Because even for myself, I was like, didn't know what to think.
Yeah, the uncertainty.
Yeah. And then March 28th, at the beginning of it, 2020, I lost my mom to COVID. And to go into the hospital when they called and said she didn't survive, and to literally not be able, as an only child, not be able to stay in the room and hug and kiss her, and I had to make it quick. They're literally standing at the door, no, we need you out. No, we need you out. And I'm like, no, this is my mom. I need to be here.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let me stay. So I kind of understood. I didn't want to die. They didn't know, you know, if I would be affected, even though she had expired. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have a lot of knowledge at that time. But it was tragic.
Very much so.
It was tragic. It really was. So.
And I appreciate you for sharing that with the world. A lot of times we hold trauma and grief in, and that turns into like a little mini tornado. inside of us. So as you sitting here, I really appreciate you being vulnerable, because you're releasing some of that grief right here on
I'm
on
helping
camera.
myself.
Go and help yourself,
I'm
as the pastor would say.
Terrorizing myself.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, and that's one of the things that in therapy it teaches you. It teaches you it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve, because grief has no expiration date.
Right.
You just never know. You could be driving down the street and now you just in a ball of tears.
that
like
song
what?
come on.
Oh, the song,
Yes,
or you
yes.
smell something
Yes.
like white diamonds for me. My grandmother,
Yes.
I love my grandmother. It's like I buy white diamonds just so I can. It brings that
Exactly.
closeness for me. So, thank you for being vulnerable, and you know, this is a great thing since we're talking about mental health. This is proof in the pudding that therapy actually works.
So
Thanks for being vulnerable. I appreciate
Not
it.
a problem. So thank you for coming today. I really appreciate the time that we spent. And kudos to you. To jail with me is something special. And I truly do feel that God sent me the therapist that I needed. So I thank you for that, and for our meeting, and for our future, because I'll be around a while. I'm a hard case.
Yeah. Well, definitely thank you for having me. I hope I was able to shed some light, a little bit more insight on what mental health is. And again, like I said, thank you for being vulnerable.
Thank you.
It really shows that therapy does work. Thanks for entrusting in me to guide you on your path to a better you. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to find out more about being on the show, visit our website. The information is on the screen. Thank you for watching the Kimberly Bennett Show. See you next time.